Welcome to Rome. This is The Bittersweet Life with Katy Sewell and Tiffany Parks. Hello, this is The Bittersweet Life. I'm Katy Sewell. Tiffany is away on a much-needed family vacation this week, but fear not, she will be appearing in today's episode. Tiffany in Rome, of course, although most recently in Austria, and Katy in Seattle. And over at patreon.com/The Bittersweet Life podcast, which is a way that some listeners choose to support the show and keep it going, we have bonus episodes reaching all the way back to July of 2020. They come out twice a month, usually every other Wednesday, and they are often expansions of the main show, or they are stories that we don't want to share in public, in a public forum. Those are shows with enticing titles like This Question is Only Answered Here, Tiffany's Stalker, and An Italian Love Affair Gone Wrong. This summer, we are going to do something that we have never done in the entirety of the 10 years that this show has been on the air. This will be shocking. It was shocking to me when I agreed to it. We are going to take August completely off. That's right. Absolutely no new shows in August. New shows, of course, as soon as September arrives. But we are taking a much needed break after 10 years of appearing every single week without fail. So, just a suggestion, this is a great time for you to tap into all the secret episodes. All the shows that you've never heard before, and you can support this show at the same time. $5 a month gets you that access, or $54 a year. Of course, you can give more than that if you want. There's a link in the show notes, but to entertain you today, let's take a listen behind that paywall one more time as we ask the question, what's in a name? Here we go. Hello, this is The Bittersweet Life. I'm Katy Sewell.
I'm Tiffany Parks.
And this is a bonus episode for you from us. And we got this question. We don't remember who it was from, but I have it written down here. And it is, what is the sexiest and least sexy name? I guess.
in our opinion.
I guess in our opinions.
No, we're just going to judge. We're going to tell you what the sexiest name is.
That's right. And I guess I was a little concerned that we would just alienate people if we said what names we think are the sexiest or unsexy. But I actually thought if we can interpret this to be something a little different, I thought it would be very interesting to talk about names in general, but also what names are the most popular names for children in Italy these days. What are the hot names? I have a fairly, I think, good idea of what people are naming kids in the United States, maybe. But I have no idea what parents are naming their kids over in Italy. And I guess,
All
Tiffany,
right.
if you want to tell us some and also weigh in on whether or not you think it's a sexy name or not, feel free.
Sure. All right. Well, yeah, ever since Aurelio started going to what they call nido here, nursery school, I've been noticing a trend. I pay attention to what Italians name their kids because there's always like the same names over and over and over and over again. You get the same names, and then you move on to preschool with a whole new group of kids, and they've all got the same names.
Mm-hmm.
There's always a few that are different, but pretty much you're going to get the same names over and over again. And I'm talking, of course, kids born in the last 10 years, so not necessarily adult names. I do have a decent grasp on what is popular in adults, but I will say that this is regional because there are certain names that are going to be more popular, like in Florence, or more popular in Rome, or more popular in the north. And so this is coming from my Rome perspective.
Okay.
You want to start with girls or boys?
Let's go with boys.
All right. Michele, everywhere. It is huge. This is the Italian version of Michael. You'd think it was 1980s in the US for how many kids are named Michele or Michael. It is everywhere. And I feel like a lot of names that have that sort of form, like Michele, Samuele, which I guess would mean they're Hebrew names. They derive from Hebrew. Michele, Samuele, and Gabriele. And Daniele. Michele, Daniele, Samuele, and Gabriele. Like these are the four names that are everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Everywhere. So that's Michael, Daniel, Samuel, and Gabriel. Everywhere. Other names that are popular among boys are Valerio and, Francesco. That's such a classic name in Italy that I think it's similar to, I can't even think, but like there's got to be something equivalent in the States. It's a classic name. It's not trendy.
Frank?
It's just, I don't think that Frank is classic. No, I mean, I'm talking about, I didn't explain myself. I'm not talking about the literal translation of the name, which would be Frank. You're right. What I mean is like culturally, like what is the name in America that never goes out of style? Francesco is that name.
Probably Michael, honestly.
Maybe Michael. Maybe.
Yeah, I think that's it.
It's just Francesca. You could meet Francescas of every single generation, and it's always popular. And there's always 3 Francescos in every class. Not necessarily 3, but at least one. There's never going to be a class without a Francesco in it. Alessandro is also very common, and I would say also timeless, which is of course Alexander or Alex, but it is not quite as common as Francesco, at least in Rome. And then you get this very particular thing, which I think this is very particular to Rome. You get a lot of Christian, not Cristiano, which is an Italian name. You get Christian, sometimes with the H, for the parents who actually know how the word is spelled. The name is spelled, and sometimes without an H for the parents who don't know. Christian is the name of the son of Rome's most popular soccer player.
Oh.
Okay. So he's not playing anymore. I think he's retired. But like 10 years ago, Francesco Totti is like a god in Rome. Like he is worshipped by anyone who loves Roman football, Roman calcio, worshipped. And so you'll get people like our neighbors who named their 2 sons Francesco and Christian. Francesco after the soccer player and Christian after his son. And I mean, it is everywhere. Like that name is really common among kids who are like about 10. And you get a very, very short list of names that are not Italian, but that are popular. And another one is Manuel, which would, I guess, be like Manuel. Like if you were in Spain, it would be Manuel, but they just say Manuel. And in Samuel, actually, Samuel and Daniel, they're starting to like become popular, the Americanized, or the English, I should say, versions. For girls, Sophia has been popular, and I know it's also been popular in the States. I don't think it's quite as popular now as it was maybe 10 years ago, but Sophia is popular. The old-fashioned names are popular these days, like Lucrezia and Beatrice. Valentina, I think, is a classic. I think Valentina is one of those names that doesn't ever go out of style. And Alessandra, same thing. So it's the same. No, it's not exactly the same as the boys, but you will see Francesca too, though. Francesca, Alessandra, and Valentina, I think, are 3 classic girls' names that you're just going to hear always, but very different from the names of like the grandmother's generation. Like here in Italy, as far as I've seen, like the grandparents' names have not come back around like they have in the States. Like in the States, like every little kid is named Ralph and Ruth and Hazel.
There's some Mabels now.
Mabel.
Hank.
Yeah. Yes. Like
Jack.
Ezra, like all of those, Floyd, even like the old guy names, they're popular now. I don't think the same is true in Italy. Like with the exception of Aurelio, that's an old person's name. That's actually like not even people's grandparents anymore. Their ancestors were called Aurelio, but there's very few Aurelios in Italy, but it's starting to come back.
Were you purposefully trying to do something against the grain when you named Aurelio?
Absolutely. Like I'm just my personality. I could never name my child Francesco. Like even though it's a beautiful name, I would have fought tooth and nail if Claudia had wanted that name. Like I could never name my child something usual, something common, something that you hear often. Just because, I don't know, that's just me. So yes, I wanted something that was unusual, but I wanted something that was a real name. Like I didn't want to like invent some crazy name like some people do. And I also wanted it to be an Italian name, although Claudia would have been happy with an English name or a Hebrew name.
Well, that's interesting that they're starting to adopt English names over there. I wouldn't have guessed that. Well, you wanted to talk about what names we could have been named also as a part of this. Now, I don't know for me, if my parents had a different plan beyond Katie if I was a girl, but I do know that what I would have been named if I was a boy, my name would have
Okay.
been Andrew,
Okay.
going by Andy, I guess. Katie is my full name, which is a little bit unusual. I'm not a Catherine. I'm not a Kathy. I have no bigger names. I'm just a
You're
Katie.
not a Kathleen.
Nope. I'm just a Katy, for those of you who are wondering, not an IE. And I think that, I don't know this for sure, but I think that at least there was some expectation that I would shorten it to Kate as an older person. Katie being kind of a diminutive name a little bit in a way, in my opinion. I've heard other people say it's not and defend it, but a little bit. But we grew up with a Kate that was in our friend group. And so, it was almost like Kate already claimed Kate. So I just stayed a Katie. But my family all calls me Kate, with the exception of my mom. So a Katie in public and a Kate at home.
There was never any other option if you were a girl
Not that
considered.
I know of. No. My parents also seem to have a commitment to 4-letter names.
Yeah, I've noticed that in your family.
Yeah. So I guess Andrew would have been a far cry from a 4-letter name, but I guess if the intention
Still
was to
two
call me Andy.
syllables. Or yeah, Andy. That would
So
have been.
if you weren't a Tiffany, what were you going to be?
Well, I actually was named by my mom, by my parents, Sarah. Um, I was Sarah for a couple days, maybe
Wow.
longer, maybe a week. I don't know if they put it on my birth certificate and then had to go change my birth certificate. I'm not sure. I have to ask my mom. She tells me you were Sarah for a couple days. You were Sarah.
Was that
And
an SARA or an SARAH?
I think H. I think there was an H on the end, but I don't know for a fact. It's funny because my father also was named a different name, and it was on his birth certificate. And his parents changed that. They changed their mind, and they went. And that's maybe. I mean, that could be that my dad, knowing that his parents had changed his name on his birth certificate, knew that it was possible and was like, "Hey, no, we got to change her name. It doesn't fit her." And in my mind, like that's what I think. They got me home. They called me Sarah. They realized in 2 days she's not a Sarah. No offense to your wonderful and spunky and sassy sister, who doesn't really seem like a Sarah either.
She's certainly not a Sarah with an H.
Yeah, well, and I mean, we could talk about typical Tiffany's too. So I can't really, I can't really open my mouth on this. But the typical Sarah, like what you imagine is like someone who's a little plain, a little boring, a little bit conventional.
I think that might be because of the book Sarah Plain and Tall.
Could be.
Which we grew up with as kids.
It also could be just simply because the name, the sound of it is very simple. Sarah, like Jane as well. I do think that the sound of your name can influence your personality. It's possible. Or at least how you think about someone. So I think Sarah is a very simple name. Mary, Sarah, Jane. And anyway, so my dad picked my name. I should talk to my mom about it and figure out if she was against it or if she didn't care. I'm not sure the whole story, but I was Sarah for a little while. But the name that she wanted to name her future daughter when she was a child, you know how we all have the name that we pick out when we're little girls. They say, when I have a daughter, I'm going to call her Darla.
Darla. Wow.
Well, I mean, you have to think my mom was growing up in the 50s, right? So late 40s, early 50s. So that was a popular name. And that was, a pretty girl's name, Darla,
Wow.
And
so what would this show be like if it was hosted by Darla Parks? And
my Lord. I remember when I was a little girl and she told me that, I loved the Little Rascals. You know the Little Rascals? Like Alfalfa. And the little girl is called Darla. And she's so cute. She's just adorable. And I used to think, oh my gosh, why didn't you name me Darla? Now I'm like, thank the Lord. No offense to any Darlas listening.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, it's interesting how your perspective on what you think is cool changes over time. Like when I was a little girl and I thought, if I could have named myself, what would I have wanted to be? And I don't actually think that either one of these are bad, but I really wanted to be a girl with a boy's name. Like I thought that would
Charlie?
be super edgy. No, and the ones I was thinking were either Jesse or Alex. But yes, and I also used to think that the hottest name for a man was either this is when I'm in elementary school.
Okay.
The hottest name for a man at that time was either Lance or
Oh my
Todd.
gosh, I went to school with Todd. Oh my gosh.
Lance or Todd. Now, later on, as I got to be a
Lance?
teenager, I started thinking all men with J names were hotter. Justin, Joel,
It
I
was
don't
the
know.
80s or the
Well,
early 90s.
it was the early 90s.
In the early 90s by that point.
Yeah.
There were a lot of J boys in our class.
Yes.
A lot. Like
Yes.
most of them.
Yes.
Most of them had J names. What other sexy names?
Interesting.
I mean,
I was jokingly thinking that since I know Claudio's home, that you were going to be like, Claudio. That's definitely the sexiest name I've ever heard.
no, this Claudio is a beautiful name. Italian names are generally going to be beautiful names. They just, because the language is beautiful, so the names are going to be beautiful. I mean, French names are beautiful as well. I don't know. Like I can't think of a female name that to me is sexy. Like unless it's connected with like a particular person, like Pamela.
It's tricky too because names do become connected with the person. And so you can dislike a name and then meet a person who you find incredibly sexy who has that name. And all of a sudden you think, well, that's a pretty good name.
For real.
It's all about how you embody it. And, there are other names when I don't know if you've ever had this opposite experience where you get to know someone. I guess this experience is really only replicated in a classroom setting or something. That's the only time I can think of it happening. But where you're in class with somebody for a long period of time and you admire them from afar, but you don't actually know what their name is. And then you find out what their name is and you're like, what? That's not your name. That is not your name. I'm sorry.
It could definitely happen like at a yoga class or at the gym. Yeah, that's funny.
But then over time, of course, as you get to know that person, you're like, of course that person is that name. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, one of my old roommates years ago, the guy that she eventually married is called Luigi. And I mean, to American, Luigi is such a joke name. I mean, it's like, first of all, it's like, let's name our son. Let's find the only name in Italian that's ugly. Like the one name that's not beautiful. Okay, Luigi. There it is. And then of course there's also the connotation with the Super Mario Brothers. So
right.
like bad enough, but like Luigi.
Yeah.
And I remember her saying to me like, man, I finally meet a nice guy. I finally meet a guy that I really like. And his name is Luigi. Like, what luck? Like, what bad luck? She had dated a Maurizio and a Corrado and, all these other beautiful names, but the guys had been jerks.
Yep. And now she could always call him Lou.
You know what? Some people call him Gigi.
Gigi,
Gigi is sort of a nickname for Luigi. Kind of sounds like a girl's name, though.
It is a girl's name over here.
In France, it is. Yeah, in France, too. So wait, the last thing we got to talk about, I know this is getting super long, but since I, rattled off the popular boys' names and girls' names in Italy, I want to see if you know what the popular girls' names are in the US. So I pulled up the top 10 girls and boys 2021.
Okay. Well, this is tricky because I don't have a child, so I don't encounter children a lot.
True.
But I would guess that it's going to be a lot of things that end with A. I think you mentioned Sophia, but I believe there would probably be an Olivia.
Olivia is number one.
Yeah, Olivia.
Good job.
There probably is an Ava.
Ava's number 4.
Number 4, okay.
Sophia is number 5. So you've got 3. The 3 you mentioned are in the top 5.
Okay. Let's see. I'm thinking an Emma or an Ella. One of those 2, maybe.
Emma is number 2. Girl, you've got 4 out of the top 5. Ella, I'm not seeing.
Now, what else would there be?
Now, you got to think about a princess. Think about a little princess who was born in the past 5 years.
Oh, dear.
A literal princess.
A real princess.
A real princess.
So, Charlotte?
Charlotte. Okay. Exactly. Charlotte was always my favorite name growing up. It was one of my favorite names, I should say. If I had had a teen pregnancy and it had been a girl, like she probably would have been Charlotte. I loved that name back then. I still love the name Charlotte to this day, but now it's so popular that I probably wouldn't pick it. Any more guesses? So far you've got out of 1 to 6. The only one you're missing is number 3.
Oh, let's see. What else are kids being named Is it a more old-fashioned one by chance?
It's old-fashioned, but it's pretty old-fashioned. It's not one of the ugly
Is
old-fashioned
it like
ones.
hazel?
It's not Hazel. No, it's not that, sorry, quote unquote ugly. I'm sorry. If your kid is named Hazel, I'm sure she's adorable. But it's a more beautiful sounding name, if that, in my taste, of course.
I could
Everyone
see
has
like a Phoebe coming back. I've seen a lot of
Oh, that's
Phoebe
pretty.
kids.
No, it's Amelia.
Amelia. Oh, that one's cute. All right, what are the other three? Or four?
The other four are Isabella, Mia, Luna, and Harper.
Oh, yeah, Harper. I actually have a friend with a Harper. Should have thought of that.
Ella is in there at number 14, by the way, followed by Ellie, which is my grandmother's name.
Very interesting. Yeah.
Interesting. Now, boys, should we do this quickly? See if you can throw some out.
Boy, the boys would be harder. Are we still in the Braden, Jaden, Aiden things?
No, I think
we've gotten past
that's
that.
Over. Thank God.
Okay,
because I'm not seeing any of those names, at least not in the top 10.
So Michael's still got to be on there.
Not
in the top 10. Jacob?
Nope. Jacob is not in the top 10. Nope.
Boy, I know that Henry and Jack made a big comeback for a while.
Jack is in at number 13, but I'm not seeing Henry anymore.
Well, you may have to read me some to get me in the right mindset.
All right, I'll read you one. Number 1, Liam.
Oh, okay. I can see that. Liam.
Yeah, I think Liam's been popular for a long time. And do you remember what the number 1 girl's name was?
No.
Olivia.
Olivia, yes.
And number 3, for boys, we have Oliver.
There you go.
So Noah, Elijah, Lucas, Levi, Mason, Asher, James, and Ethan.
Interesting.
Those are the popular boys' names.
Well,
you did really well on the girls' names.
Yeah. All right. Well, that was super fun. It's always interesting to think about names and how we name things. It really is. All right. Well, thank you for that question. That was super fun. And thank you for supporting this show. Keep your questions coming. You can always send them to us through the Patreon app, which sounds so professional, but really it's just patreon.com. Go to your account and you can send us a message through there. And then you also can just send us a question through bittersweetlifepodcast@gmail.com. And thank you so much for supporting this show. We really, really could not do it without you.
No, we couldn't.
And we'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.
Katy here again. Hope you enjoyed that. And I want to thank recent Patreon supporters Jill, Kathy, Dana, Dan, and John. Thank you so much for your support. And just so you know, you got to hear a bonus episode today, but I actually did edit part of it out because Tiffany said I would never share this on the main show right before she shared something. And this is the main show. So I took it out. For as little as $5 a month, $54 a year, or more, you can support the show. So important, so vital, such a compliment, and there are so many fun things to listen to. And fear not, we're still in July, so we'll talk to you next week. Bye.